Hi, everybody. Welcome to the second episode of Shaun Doesn't Play Video Games, a podcast that still doesn't have a tagline yet, but it's about a graphic designer and a political scientist going through in the magical world of indie video games. I'm your host, Tyler. With me, as always, Shaun. How you doing, Shaun?
That's me. Good.
Good. All right, so today's episode, we're not playing a game. As per Shaun's request, we watched a movie called Indie Game, the Movie, which focuses on the game we played last week, Super Meat Boy, along with the game Fez and Braid. And well, Shaun, I guess we're gonna kind of break up this show a little differently, since there isn't really gonna be a lot of gameplay, probably not a lot of struggle, but there's definitely gonna be a story and there's definitely gonna be presentation. So, how do you want to go about doing this?
I guess I feel like since I was the one that kind of prompted this show, I think maybe I should talk about why
Okay.
I wanted to talk about this. So originally, just to let you guys know, like when Tyler and I were starting the show, I had not seen this before, and he said, "Have you watched it yet?" at the end of the last show, and I said no. So I decided I was going to watch it, started going through it, and I actually didn't know that Meat Boy was going to be on it. I had no idea about it. And the more I was watching it, the more I started thinking about how maybe the first episode was a good way to talk about games, but it was this movie would allow me to understand games a little bit deeper than just I liked how we talked about, like, was there struggle? Did you like the storyline? What do you think about the aesthetics, overall gameplay and stuff like that? Because I guess there was things that I didn't really think about until I watched the movie. Like I liked how the creators of these games put a lot of time into pedagogy, which for like a layman audience is like, how do you learn the game? Because when I was doing Meat Boy, like I learned it, it was pretty simple. And they were saying they spent so much time in the beginning to Meat Boy, like every episode makes you add another function or something. So you learn how to get to the game until you get to the end level and you kind of like add all of these skills together to get through it. Then they talked about like the mechanics of the game and talked about the identity of the game, which I think are all really important things that we didn't talk about last time. And two, I think that let's just go with the regular ones that we did, because I think there's elements of all of these even in this movie. So I think it's just be a nice way to get to know the audience, I guess, get to know us a little bit more. But that's how I got to here. That's why I wanted to do this, because I thought this would be something good to talk about.
What you're talking about, the pedagogy. Yeah. That's kind of like what I was trying to say about, like, well, they're trying to make a narrative.
Okay.
But that's kind of like the angle I was trying to like maybe see if you could get.
Yeah.
Or if I feel like that's kind of a narrative.
Yeah.
It's a very abstracted narrative. That's kind of like, I want to see if you saw that. I don't know if I fully see it. And maybe that's not even a narrative. I don't know. Do you think that's actually a way of telling a story?
Yeah, no, I think that, okay, so I agree with you totally. I just think that there's a little bit of difference between pedagogy is actually like the way that you train things versus narrative in my mind, which is like a story.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's why I drew in the conclusion. Maybe that's why I didn't answer your question, was because I thought about the narrative as like, what is Meat Boy's adventure like in reference to last episode versus like, what were the first 10 levels like? Like, did you find it easy to gain access to all the commands that Meat Boy could do? Was it easy to figure this out? So
right.
Did you like how it was taught through levels like that, or would you like to seen it like I don't know. We haven't really reviewed any other video games, but now that I know this, it'll be interesting to see like if the next ones that we play, if it's kind of all up front, or if it's kind of like learn as you go, or if I end up like searching the internet for different commands that aren't obvious.
Right.
That's what I think about more as pedagogy, like
gotcha.
In terms of training you to play the game.
So we each made some mistakes. Well, not actually. You didn't make any mistakes. I made a mistake.
No, it's all right. But now we have this cleared out, so now we can make the show better. That's what's great. But the one thing I couldn't figure out was mechanics, though. I wrote it down, and I remember watching movies, but I forget what it was. How they described the mechanics of the game. Do you remember any of this? You don't remember?
Not in particular.
Okay.
I was literally talking about like mechanics of the movie, but I mean,
okay, no, yeah, the mechanics of the movie, but I mean, like
gameplay of the movie.
In the game, they talked about like those three things kind of stuck out to me a lot. It was like the pedagogy of the game, the mechanics of the game. Like,
Okay,
maybe that was like how the world operates, how the game operates.
So you were referencing back to our previous episode,
yeah,
and kind of building upon it. Gotcha. Okay,
yeah,
I was like, wait. Okay, gotcha. Cool.
So, and then the other thing that we didn't talk about that I think is really interesting, and I want to talk about more, is the identity of the game. Because I noticed how a lot of the designers were kind of, I wouldn't say they were outcast, but they each had like, there was a personality that they each of them brought to the game that I didn't see before. Like literally, that's why I feel like ignorant and naive talking about Meat Boy now, because I feel like there was so much stuff there was like almost zero research going into like how the game came about, and I'm just like giving comments, and I don't know. I just feel like that I'm giving incomplete.
But I mean, that's almost sort of like the point I wanted to kind of like make, or kind of like just explore, is that like you have no idea. Like you had literally no context of anything, and I wanted to see what that felt like. Yeah. I wanted to have you experience what it's like to not know anything, and just to be like, let's talk some shit about this game, you know, like, or like sing his praises, you know. I wanted to see just like, and also you could have researched into the game. I mean, you know, it's like I kind of left it open, and you know, you don't necessarily have to do research for any of the games that we play. You can just go in blind. That's fine. Yeah. But I want you to, if you're interested in researching the game, if that's important to you, then you can do that.
Yeah.
So, but at no point would I ever be like, Shaun, you have to understand. Because I don't know if that matters.
Yeah.
I don't know if it matters like what their life was before making the game, or even making the game, during, before, after making the game. It shouldn't matter like what their life was, what they went through. I mean, it kind of matters if it's like, oh, well, there were 600 people making a really good game. You know, like, of course it's going to be good because there was 600 people. But if it was like 2 people, like, well, okay. If it's just 1 person, you're like, oh, okay, now you have my interest. But I mean, even then, a game should still stand on its own, regardless of how many people or how much time or whatever happened to it. So
right.
Because now I feel like if you would watch that first, I feel like you would have been overwhelmingly more positive about the game than you were just going into it straight.
Okay.
And I mean, and I feel like that, you know, that's not as interesting, I think.
Yeah. Oh, maybe we should do that then. Maybe we should have like a rule then, like no research before you play the game. And then you play the game, we do a review, and then maybe the next time we come back and say like, oh, after I did it, maybe this is some of the.
Okay, that's fine.
Kind of have
you can play your like minimum 5 hours, and you can research into it as much as you want. Then you can kind of.
Right. I feel like that's good. I think that's a good way to do it. That way you still get something honest, but I can still, you know, like walk back all the dumb stuff that I said from the week before.
Right.
That said, it's still out there, so it's not like I can.
Right. And even then, we always could have a like a post-mortem episode, like a month down the road, and be like, how's Super Meat Boy going for you? They are actually working on Meat Boy Forever, which is, I believe, is a game that's going to be on mobile. So that should be.
Oh, okay, cool.
Check that out.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, so we should probably get into this movie now.
Yeah.
We should talk about what's going on. All right, so story. What did you think of the story of? We can divide it up amongst each of the different people.
I think we can just talk it all about it together.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what was the story?
What games do they talk about there? Like, okay, so there's a story. Like, they talked about the three games: Super Meat Boy, Fez, and what was it? Braid. Yeah,
Braid.
I think you said at the beginning. Yeah. Basically, like went behind the scenes of everybody, kind of showing like the creativeness behind all the games and the process of getting the games done and stuff. Yeah, and so like, I guess we can go by game now. Maybe it is easier. So the process of making Super Meat Boy was both the guys who I don't remember their names. Sorry. They spent all that time making Super Meat Boy. I was surprised at how far away they were from each other. I always figure when you're like working on a game, you're like next to each other and you're like creating this process together. But the fact that they're like on the other sides of the country that was pretty neat. But yeah, I mean, they struggled a lot. I was surprised that I didn't know that it was 2 people. I figured there was probably a small group of people that put it together, but I didn't know they would put so much time into creating that game. Like they really did. And I think they had the best commentary out of everybody, like making games that they really want to play and making games that are truly difficult to play. And they gave like honest, good reactions. Like the one, I forget his name, whatever. He was like the guy that was.
It was Edmund and Tommy.
Okay.
Edmund is the one with the beard, and Tommy is the one that has not a beard.
Edmund had like the most genuine reactions of anybody to his game ever, which was like, no one's hated it yet. I just want to find somebody who absolutely hates it and wants to trash it. And like, I like that about him. Like he was like, I want to find a hater. I want them to like tell me that my game is garbage, because I think that maybe that's the good spirit of that, is that you're pushing yourself forward by finding people that are like, this wasn't that good. Like I'd rather spend $60 on a name brand video game. And
right.
But I also like what Tommy had to do. Like, that's what I mean. These guys like put their heart and soul into this, and that was pretty neat. I love that narrative of them. And then like the heartbreak of like how each of them like deal with the stress of it being published on Xbox. And Tommy was like so pissed that it didn't come out right away, and Edmund's like, I just won't even watch. Like it's just like these 2 guys that are like seem like such different people. And the fact that Edmund had a history of making games, like he even got that award or whatever. That's pretty interesting. I guess it shined a light on like indie games for me. So.
But yeah, I think the movie really did focus a lot on their story in particular. Yeah. And it probably had a lot to do with the fact that they were trying to finish it within a relatively short time frame. And I believe Braid had already been out. Yeah. Braid has set the precedence. So like, it's interesting that they had him on there when his game was already kind of complete, and he was just kind of like, talking philosophically, because he was kind of like after that came out. Yeah. So he was like beyond that. So why do you think they selected those 3 groups of people?
When you talk about Braid, like I have no idea why they chose. Like I think you're right. He kind of felt like filler. You know what I mean? Like he already had his done. I guess it was like another good narrative of like, this is what it's like when it's complete and it can still drive you crazy. Maybe that's what was the story of that. Was like now they showed that clip of him, that scene where he's like replying to people's posts on the internet about his game, like in their comments, like, you didn't figure this out, blah 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 blah. And I was kind of like, wow, dude, like give it up. Like,
he just wanted people to appreciate it. He wanted to understand the artistic the thought that he put into the game.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but I mean, at a certain point, I don't know. I think you have to let a little bit of breathing room for people to kind of interpret it differently. I don't think that there's any benefit, there's any benevolence that you bestow on people from, having this like complete totality of meaning on your game, and as soon as somebody says something that you don't like, you're up on there, like killing them with kindness, like, well, did you try this? Because if you did, you would figure it out. I was kind of like, okay, gotta let that go.
Well, yeah, I think the perspective we were meant to like kind of like have with it is that he used to work on bigger titles, and then now he was doing it completely on his own. So it was like his child. He was much more connected to that in particular than he would be with other projects. So there's a little bit more like coveting of Braid, whereas when Edmund and others have made 5 or 6 games, indie games, there's he's gone through that process before,
right?
So he's probably not like, he's obviously close. He only keeps it close to him, but he's not gonna like freak out over those sorts of things,
right?
So
yeah,
because when you like kind of like watch it, Jonathan Blow kind of presents the two sides of the spectrum where he's so like indie games are supposed to be like this precious thing, like they're not precious, but they're not a precious thing actually, because they're supposed to be diamonds in the rough. They're not supposed to be like super polished, well-crafted games. They're supposed to be a little quirky and a little weird. Mm-hmm. So there's that, but he's also at the same time he's trying to protect those diamonds in the rough, but he shouldn't. You want to protect those things. It's like a project that you weren't quite finished with, that you presented anyway. You're like, I just couldn't get it done, and so you gotta really defend it. Because you're like, fuck, I know I could do better, even though I think that he did very well. But that's whatever. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I just feel like the amount of like from what they showed in the movie, I have no personal experience with this, but like the fact that he was on there so much and the way that they portrayed him, it just seems so weird. Like, because I don't think I could be like that. Like, maybe I don't have any experience creating video games, but I have written things that lots of people have read. Not as much as probably as video games, but like, and I would be defensive if someone made a comment about it like that was offensive or something, and I would correct them. But I would, like, if somebody reads something that I wrote and said like, oh, that's just garbage, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I would be all defensive about it. I think I'd be like, okay.
Right. Well, you probably also didn't have Soulja Boy playing your game and posting on YouTube being like, look at this stupid shit.
But then again, where the hell's Soulja Boy been since 2008?
Well, to be fair, that's about the time the movie came out. So
right. He's
like, look at this game. It's so cool and funny and stupid because you can rewind in time and stuff. It's it's like just like defacing your game completely.
Right.
You're like, look how silly this game is, when you're like, actually it's not. So
yeah.
All right, so
I don't know. What I'm trying to say is you just can't win all your battles.
That's right.
So
I'd agree with that.
Take the ones that actually matter.
Mm-hmm.
So let it go.
All right, so Phil Fish, what'd you think?
Man, he had some pretty psycho moments there, didn't he? Yeah, dude. Right. He's in that hotel. Yeah. I was like kind of worried. I was like, dude, this guy needs to like go get checked into a hospital or something. He's about ready to have a psychotic break.
Well,
he was going through a lot, don't get me wrong, but I think like, I don't know, that threat that he made in that hotel lobby, that didn't seem like that was like metaphoric or anything. That really seemed like he was going to go find that guy and kill him. Like, it was really weird. He had those crazy eyes. He did it. He had that face.
But he spent so much time making that game. He just wanted to release it.
Yeah, you gotta fight for what you love, right? But I don't know. Maybe it's just that one put me on edge a little. I was kind of like,
3 years. Come on, man. You've been working on it for a long, long time. You can't tell me that you're like, I want to make some money. I've lost everything because of this game.
I don't know. I don't feel bad for it. Diversify your assets. Okay. I put all my stock into raisins. Raisins are the next cereal. Like, no, they're not. So stop. Like,
all right. So you do not sympathize with his creative struggle.
Nope.
Okay. Does that color the way you're going to perceive Fez as we play it for next week's show?
I'm going to try not to.
Also, just as a forward.
That said, though, I expect his game to be good.
All right. Well,
like the bar is high now, because if he spent 3 years on it and that's his baby and he's willing to like say all this awful stuff, like, pony up, bitch.
Oh, Jesus. And just as an update on the Phil Fish story, he was working on Fez 2, and then he got fed up with the internet, and so he canceled Fez 2, and he's no longer making video games anymore. after several outbursts on the internet. So
he was a child prodigy. He was the Macaulay Culkin of indie games. That's what I want to call him.
whew, that's quite a title to give somebody.
Yep. Said it here. But that's what I mean. Like I felt like that when I watched the movie because everyone's like, "Oh, this game's gonna be so good. Where's Fez?" Blah blah blah. And you could tell that he was like all into that. Like, yeah, people want my game. People want my game. And then as soon as anything didn't work out, it was like, I don't know how much of that was like just creative editing that made him look like an idiot or a jerk. If he is in real life, I don't know. Never met the guy. I don't really know if I want to. But get ready, Fez. Better pony up.
Right.
Better be worth. Better be a good game.
Bam.
Find out next week.
Find out next week how Fez turns out. Okay, so you heard the 3 stories. So I feel like you had the most connection to Super Meat Boy because I feel like it was kind of the most featured story.
Yeah.
I don't know what. Trying to think of like what do you. I feel like you could probably identify with the situation that they're in one way or another because they're sort of like struggling for their art, and there's 20-somethings that that currently don't have jobs in their field.
Well, no, I mean, okay, so here's why I identify with them. Yeah, you're right. They're creative. But I think of all the people in the movie, I felt for them because, you know what? They set out to do something and they did it. The reason that I didn't feel for, what was his first name? Last name was Fish. What was it? Phil Fish?
Phil Fish?
I didn't feel for him because, you know, like it's a difference between like they were writing something that was like topical and for the moment. And every time he kept saying like, well, then I got really good at this, so I had to change everything, and then it didn't look the same. And I think like I don't know if that's just I haven't played Fez yet. I guess we'll figure this out next week. Like if that's just, you know, foul on you for not thinking about what you were doing and just being consistent and adding more work to your plate, or if maybe you should have done Fez 1 and then Fez 2, and you already had Fez 3 out, but you just said, you know what, I'm going to go back and change every little detail, which is great for you. I mean, congratulations, you're the Chuck Close of game design, but art joke for anybody who is into that. You know, maybe you should have Warhol it.
In the commentary that I listened to or I watched because I had already seen the movie, so I decided to watch it again with the commentary with Tommy and Edmund, and they were like, "Yeah, Phil probably was a little too ambitious for his first video game. He bit off a little more than he could chew because that was, I mean, that." Because I mean, I've played a lot of Edmund's like earlier games, and they're pretty mechanically simple. They're not exactly like groundbreaking games, but you know, at least by Super Meat Boy, he at least found what he was kind of going for. So,
I mean, that's what I kind of. I don't know. I don't think that Edmund and Tommy are saying this, but like, just too bad for Phil because he jumped in over his head. He wanted to do something great, and more power to him for doing that. But you know what? Like, you got to walk before you can crawl.
Right.
I mean, you got to crawl before you can walk, and you got to walk before you can run. You know, and he was just like so ambitious. Like, you know, he flew too close to the sun. There you go.
But I mean, I feel like you're pretty critical for someone that. I feel like there's nothing wrong with being ambitious.
No, I don't think there's anything wrong with being ambitious, but I guess what I'm saying is it's almost like he seems like somebody who's pretty sophomoric. You know, like I was a social science major, and it seems like this has happened to be like a really sophomoric thing. Ironically, it happened to sophomores that like when you're in political science, every sophomore wants to write about the Israeli-Palestinian crisis, and they were going to solve it. You know, they're going to put all their endeavors for the next 3 years into solving that crisis. And by the time they're a senior, they don't care anymore. You know what I mean? But that time they were so into it. They were so like impassioned about it, and they were going to do something. And they started this club, and they had meetings, and you know, and you're like at a certain point you're just laughing. You're just like you think that you're going to be like the individual that makes a difference. Like you're going to be the one that solves it. Just you, single-handedly you. And it's like, just get over yourself. I'm sorry. It's really complicated. It takes a lot. So like you're going to write your bestseller is going to be like the first book you ever write. I'm sorry.
Right. Well, unfortunately, he's never going to get that next bestseller.
That sucks.
So, but
I guess we'll find out next week if it even was a bestseller the first time.
Right. Well, it definitely sold well. We could definitely know that much. But all right. So, is there any more like commentary you have, kind of like on the story, like kind of like the way the story was structured, or like kind of like the way it, like the narrative like flowed throughout the movie? Do you have like any like maybe on like the cinematography? Do you like documentaries? Do you like how this was shot? Do you think it was paced well?
Yeah, it was all right. I mean, it seemed kind of long. I think I watched it in 2 sittings. I can usually watch a documentary in 1. But I don't know. I felt like it was kind of long-winded in some places. But the story was good. There wasn't really, I don't know. I felt you could, in terms of like it being a great documentary that's like fantastic. No. Because it doesn't, there's like nothing classical documentary about it. I felt like it was heavy. It was like, they probably had a lot of material there too that they had to like pick and choose and edit. I just felt like they forced the story sometimes a little bit too much.
So what would you say you would cut? What part did you feel like was more fluff than it needed to be?
Everything with Braid.
See, I'm not willing even to say that. Well, but because I think he had some really. You have to. The part where he talks about the game being like doesn't have to be perfect. An indie game is not meant to be this like perfect thing.
Right.
I feel like that was like the most important, like one of the most important quotes for that entire movie.
Right.
Because it really showed you, or I kind of like put into perspective kind of like what you're about to watch, because he opened it up with that. The movie opened up with that.
Right.
But I guess there was a lot of like interviews from like other people, like other like games media people. So maybe that could have just been thrown in there as well.
Right.
But
well, that's what I feel like. If that was his biggest contribution, was to kind of like add that point in as like a bullet point for what you should draw from the movie. I think there was a lot of commentary that Tommy and Edmund talked about that pretty much said the same thing.
But what about the parts where he was talking about like the game prototype? Like he was working on like he had just the basic art assets and he like just had the level laid out and he was like really like kind of like.
I mean, yeah. And in terms of like how do you design it? How do you like go through idea development and stuff? Yeah, that was good. That was worth it. Yeah, I don't know. I think that methodologically it could have been done better on the part of the documentary team. I just don't think he was needed. So, taking out Braid, but you got to have games in 3s. Yeah, everything has to be in set of 3s. So that's probably why they had it in there. That's an unwritten rule.
I mean, when you try to make a point about something, you say 2 things. You're like, okay. You say 3 things. You're like, oh. That's why every good 5th grade essay is 3 paragraphs with 3 points.
Yeah, the 3.5. Yeah.
So, that's all I'm saying.
All right.
So how did you?
I'll give that to you.
So I would ask you like, what game would you think would also suit well to fit in the movie? But I don't think you probably know who else would fit well into there.
I think they could have done it on Meat Boy alone.
That's why
I feel like it was added. Like there was too much. Like it was the story of Meat Boy was already like compelling enough. I mean, yeah, you got to see the whole like. So when you get to see, Okay, because all of them went about it a different way, right? You know, like didn't Braid go right out? Braid didn't go on Xbox, did it?
I don't think so.
You know, and like
game.
Super Meat Boy went over, you know, went over Microsoft, and then you know, Fez. It was just a whole process of trying to get somebody to buy the. Looked like he was trying to like sell the franchise a little bit of Fez.
He was
And
just trying to get it finished.
okay, I was gonna.
He wasn't concerned about what happened after. You know, he just wanted to finish the game.
Okay, but that's kind of what I saw about. Okay, maybe that's where all three of them were good connecting. Is that like the end goal of all of them was, you know, each of them had their own struggle in order to get their game out there. You know, maybe that was, you know, an important component besides just the design and the backstory was the struggle that it is to get your indie game out there in a market that's so like saturated with big time games that are coming out all the time and worked on by thousands of people and smoothed over in all these ways so that they're really, you know, pleasing and all this other stuff. And
Fuck, I just had a point I was going to say. I don't know.
it's okay if you think about it again. You can stop me. Just tell me.
Okay.
There you go.
Trying to think of a new point to talk about. Whoopsie. If only we edited the show. Oh boy.
Nope. Raw and uncut. Yeah, I don't know. Do you? I don't know. I detect a hint of annoyance in your voice when I talk about how I don't care about this stuff. Like there's like, I don't know, like justify to me why we should leave. Did you like it? Did you like it? Did you think it was good? Did you think there was something that should be added that wasn't there? Did you think that everybody's story was compelling?
All right. Well, to be fair, I am. It's much more compelling to be like, all right. Well, but what about, you know? I'm like devil's advocating a little bit because I can't just be like, yeah, I totally agree with you, Shaun. All right, podcast over, yay! But that's also not who I am as a person. I don't know if I can just be like, I kind of want to like really push to see if like, is that true? You know, like, did I like the movie? Yes, it did. You're right in that I would definitely say that the Super Meat Boy narrative was definitely the most compelling. I definitely think back to that section more often than not. But I think it was more about being like a sort of like a period piece documentary, almost like sort of like just documenting this this particular era of the indie game, the sort of the emerging genre, and so you're right in that they probably could have picked better games, but maybe also those were the only games or people that were like, hey, yeah, you can totally document us developing our games and literally we're ripping our hair out in frustration. You know, like, that's fine, no problem. So, I mean, it's like, I don't know, it feels like they picked those different, or they ended up with those three different games because they each had a different like struggle that they're going through. And I think that's important that they each have like, it's not all the same struggle. We're like, oh, we have a time crunch. Oh, we have a time crunch. Oh, we have a time crunch. It's like, oh, well, I am a little too concerned with the artistic value of video games and people are upset with me or like don't understand my game, or I'm this big ego guy and I just want to get my game finished, but I'm losing my mind, you know? And then there's like the two like, come on, guys, we could do it if we just believe in ourselves, you know, like the anime Wonder Boys that are like, you know, they're gonna do it in the end. You know, it's like I would agree that there's that they could have just made it about Meat Boy.
Yeah,
But I feel like some years, like you just got to make it. I feel like it wasn't a bad idea to make a documentary,
Right.
and I feel like they needed all of those things to give an adequate breadth of the games that were coming out at that time.
Right.
And some years you just don't get as good as stuff. You know, it's like not every war can be World War II. You know, it's like we can't have the greatest war of all time. You know, like it doesn't work like that. So I think they worked with what they had, and they just so it's like maybe it's too late. You can't go back now. We're never gonna go back to a time when you can then making an indie game was hard, and you know like there's definitely a lot more support nowadays for making games.
Yeah.
So much so that people can literally buy assets to a 3D game and just like buy a template of a game and just sell it on Steam and make like $5 and then it gets taken down because it's using assets and literally nothing else. So
when you watch the movie with the commentary, I haven't seen the commentary with it. Were Edmund and Tommy kind of happy with the way they were portrayed with the film?
I would say so.
Yeah.
The major problem was like if anything that had to do with Edmund being emotional, he was like, "We're just gonna talk over this." like I don't want to hear this. You know, he was like, because that was like because them like being emotional made him emotional, and he didn't want to like go back to that again.
Oh, okay.
Right, because it's like you don't want to see your wife like crying.
Right. Well, the reason I ask you is because, like, I wonder, and I got the feeling this is why I like said maybe I wasn't into this documentary, that I didn't think it was actually that good, was because I feel like you never hear like the creators like questioning, like asking them questions. You just hear their commentary, and of course it's edited to give like good answers in a meaningful way. But do you think that like I don't know. That's why I feel like Super Meat Boy was like the great part of this movie, because I feel maybe Phil Fish wasn't happy with the result. You know, he wasn't happy with the way he was portrayed, and they might have been getting a different story. And I felt, you know, like maybe he was. I wonder if maybe, I don't know if you got this too, if he used this documentary, if maybe they convinced him to come on as part of a way to build publicity for his game. And, you know, in a way kind of like, I don't want to say tricked, but they did, like tricked him into like, you can come on, we'll build some more publicity for your game, we'll show a little bit how it's made, we'll get some interviews with you and good stuff, and we'll go on your adventure. But they ended up finding this like back narrative of him, you know, and it was more entertaining to have him look like somebody who was on the verge of mental breakdown and in constant anguish, because he was going crazy after 3 years of building this game.
Mm-hmm.
And the same way with, I'm sorry, the guy who built Braid. I'm sorry?
Jonathan Blow.
Yeah. Like, I kind of felt like it was just, maybe they came on there, and from the commentary that he got was, you know, how they sold him was like, well, you can go on here and talk about your game, you know, and like tell people how you actually created it. And it was just as a way to like, for him to keep on his mission of like saying like, this is how my game is. This is what my game is. Because the whole time he seems so serious. Like, this is what my game's about. Don't get it wrong. This is what it is, you know. And like, if he would have watched that and they show that clip of Soldier Boy, like that would have like uber pissed him off. Him having to watch that again and being like, oh my God, you can go back in time. And like, he's like, oh, did you miss everything? Like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like Meat Boy guys, Edmund and Tommy were the only ones that got good, fair play on that whole documentary.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely agree that they got the best end of the deal out of it, I think. Well, I mean, that also happens when it's a success story. I mean, what else do you want?
Yeah.
Is a game that came out that people didn't hate.
What if it would have been 3 games that everyone hated?
Well, then they would have made a documentary about it.
Are you sure? People like to make documentaries about bad people.
Unfortunately, no one wants to make a documentary about a bad video game unless it was really bad. Like, it has to be like E.T. for the Atari bad. And I believe they did make a documentary about that game.
Okay, yeah, they did. Have you seen it?
No.
I have seen that. It's pretty
But
good.
I have seen the one about Donkey Kong, and
I haven't seen that one.
That's not the same thing.
Okay.
It's just about 2 people competing for the highest Donkey Kong score.
You should really watch the ET one. It's pretty good.
Yeah. All right. I would say I'm a pretty big fan of documentaries. The Indie Game the movie was actually probably one of the documentaries that got me interested in watching more documentaries. So I'm sorry that like I'm like this documentary isn't that bad, and you're like, this is a pretty bad documentary.
Sorry, I really like documentaries. I watch a lot.
This is fucking March of the Penguins, okay?
That also wasn't a very good documentary.
All right, well, Hero Dreams of Sushi. Is that or Jiro?
Tune in to Dude's Brunch to hear more commentary about my favorite documentaries.
Oh, we should. That's a great topic. We should talk about it. March of the Penguins. Doing it.
Hero Dreams of Sushi is a fantastic documentary, though. Man, if you want to watch something that like makes you inspired to do something that you really want to do, that will do it.
That's right.
So.
And if you want to learn the trials and tribulations of making any video game, watch Any Game the Movie.
Yeah.
So I think we've more or less drained the topic dry as much as we can on purely what happens in the movie. Did you like the music? Did you feel like that like was appropriate?
Yeah, I can't say that I like remember any of it.
Okay.
But I don't think that's a bad thing. Like, I think you're telling a story, so maybe the music isn't that important.
It was just a lot of like guitar, like very like, and like sort of like the glockenspiel. Let's see what else was there. I guess from what other sort of aspects about the movie? There was like they had like some infographics.
Yeah.
They had like some visuals that they did. Did those enhance or take away anything?
Not memorable.
All right. Cool. Did you find that the commentary from like the other people that weren't the main 3 archetypes or the main 3 arcs in the movie, did you find their commentary interesting in any way?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there wasn't that much of it, but
right. It was kind of
when Phil Fisher was at that game show. I forget what it's called. God, I'm so bad.
PAX.
Yeah.
There you go.
And people were giving him feedback. That was good. I liked what they had to say. You could tell that he was like pretty pleased for the most part. At least they gave the impression that he was pretty pleased with people's reactions to it. If he once he got it working and stuff. And I'm glad that he like got the rights to it. I'm glad that his former business partner like was like, hey, you know, right? Yeah, that's good. I'm happy for him that happened, because that would totally suck. So.
All right. Well, so we've kind of basically hit the struggle and at every point of this discussion, in that you're like, this movie's just okay, and you would have just preferred to have seen the Super Meat Boy movie.
Yeah. Super Meat Boy the movie. That's what I just cut out all the rest. Get to the meat. Cut out. Get rid of the gristle. Get to the meat.
Well, I think at the very least, I feel like it served as a good sort of primer for giving you sort of a view into the beginnings. I think it at least gave you a taste.
Yeah.
You kind of know what to expect now. I feel like going forward, you're going to be like, all right, well, it's not going to be a lot of people making these games. There's probably going to be problems with them, but that's what makes them what they are.
Right. I guess that's why I was excited about talking about it, because now I feel like I have a little bit better of an understanding of what's going on here, instead of just, like the mystery, which will remain a mystery for somewhat of the games. But, like at least you have an understanding of like, in the same way that that rock and roll probably has guitars in it.
Right.
Like you should probably understand that indie games are made by like 1 or 2 people, or like a small group, or the same way that like that kind of thing. Like you get an understanding basically. Then I don't know. I feel like I was just jumping in blind, and Shaun doesn't play, but like it was like Shaun doesn't do anything. Like
right.
So.
All right, so I feel like I want to be like, well, what would you say Indie Game the Movie 2 would be like? But it kind of like, you don't really know yet.
Yeah.
I would say we should have that discussion in a like 10, 20, 30 episodes. And then you can maybe give a perspective on it.
Right.
On what you think the next documentary would be.
I think that's a good idea.
Well, do you have any final thoughts? Because I feel like we're talking in circles right now. But
no, I gave a lot of opinion. That was all thought. So
it's okay. Oof, these episodes have been brutal. Yeah, have not been saving any punches. Which I guess this
is quite the opposite of our other podcast. For
right.
People who listen to this one and not Dude's Brunch, Dude's Brunch is pretty diplomatic and safe.
Right. This is where Shaun takes his AA gun and just shoots down everything. He's just.
I give it a good shot sometimes on Dude's Brunch, but not as much here.
That's okay.
I didn't hate nearly as much as I do on.
All right. So next week, Bez. Will it live up to the psychotic breakdown of Phil Fish? Probably not. But
the game about nothing that took you 3 years to design.
There you go. We'll find out. And then we'll play something else.
Yep.
I don't know. Do you want to play Braid?
Yeah, I feel like we should do that too.
Yeah.
Let's get the trifecta out of the way.
Yeah, we might as well play the games that you've now shit all over. Shit all over the people who played them.
That way we can talk the first episode, and the first 4 episodes will be essentially all about the same thing.
Right. Well, that's okay. I think that's, I mean...
Got a little storyline going on there, guys.
Yeah. It's the indie game primer.
Oh, continuity? Well,
that's right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well...
Thanks for watching, everybody.
That's right.
Till next time.
That's right. Till next time, because this schedule will be inconsistent, we've discovered. So we'll keep you up to date on when. Actually, we're definitely doing Fez next week.
Yeah.
But after that, we'll be up in the air. Apologize for that. All right. So I guess we'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.